All right. Well, we've got Elena with us today, and this is Cody. This will be one of our episodes, starting with the new podcast, being called "The Awakened Stranger." So, just two strangers meeting for the first time and sharing each other's stories. So, Elena, if you'd like to give us a little breakdown and give us a rundown of your life and introduction to who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for inviting me. And I love I love what you're doing, Cody. I love meeting you in person. I love that first video you posted because it's reminding us of the very human nature that we all lost connection with and we all looking to reconnect. And you just happen to put it on display, that very soft heart that we all wanted to reconnect.
Yeah.
My name is Elena. I live in Richmond area in Virginia. Originally, I'm from Russia. I was born and raised in what used to be called Soviet Union. I moved to United States in 1998, so I've been living here in Virginia since then. I've traveled quite a bit, visited other states, other countries. So, yeah.
Very cool. Well, I guess first off, what brought you over to the U.S. from Russia?
Well, I can give you the earthly story. I got married to an American man. Eventually, he was working in Russia. We lived in Russia for a while. Then he was transferred to another country. We lived there for a while, and eventually, he quit his job, and we had a child, and we moved to the United States to raise our child. But there's a more of a unseen purpose or a cause. I think it was written on my destiny to move from one country to another, to connect and unite the two very different perspectives into one. Because as you may know, Soviet Union and United States are still on the very far ends from one another.
Yeah, yeah. And I definitely, my wife's good at the politics side of things, and I've just been one of those that
Yeah,
kind of not paid attention. So I would not
right,
even
right,
dare to talk about it and feel like I'm misinformed. So,
right,
um,
right.
but yeah. So in the comment when you sent me the link to our call, you had mentioned that your story's similar to mine. Um,
Right, right. I think most of the awakened stories are very similar. They kind of follow in very similar pattern, maybe in different form. I started my awakening journey about 15, a little bit more than 15 years ago. So I've been on this journey for a while, and I like to be of a support to others who come in and being kind of new and fresh, because
mhm.
it's, as exciting as it is not an easy journey.
Yeah.
And when you don't have a support, you have a lot more falls and getting up, just like learning anything new. If no
Mhm.
one's there with you, helping you, supporting you, teaching you, it's kind of hard to do it on its own. So that's why I'm so happy that you started this community.
Yeah. And
So I can kind of give you a little bit of how it all started, but again, very similar. I was 35 when I started feeling that emptiness that you described. It's just like, whatever you do doesn't seem like fulfill you anymore. And you just start looking for something else outside of all this.
yeah. Was there a moment in your life that kind of kicked that off, or something that was just, I guess,
Well,
the catalyst for it?
yeah, yeah, yes, definitely. You do need some kind of moment. You can't just, all of a sudden wake up one morning and change your mind. This is not what I want. There has to be a moment, and usually that moment is very strong
Mhm.
because it makes us really pay attention. And so
Yeah.
for me, that moment was followed by a tremendous amount of relationships kind of failing.
Mhm.
I would go from one failed relationship to another failed relationship. Marriage didn't work, that didn't work. So on the outside, I had everything I wanted. I had a career going, I had property, all this, but I didn't have that fulfillment, any joy in my life. So I had this question, what's the issue? What can I do differently? And then I had a dream, and that dream is what changed the trajectory for me,
Ah,
because I never really been any spiritual. I've never been raised spiritual. I've lived in Soviet Union, which is actually more of an atheist country, at least used to be. Religion was looked down upon, so I've never questioned if there's anything out there, any kind of higher power or anything like that.
hmm,
But in that dream, I was clearly given a message by a divine voice. And when I woke up, I just knew it was a voice of God, of someone who you perceive as God.
yeah.
And I didn't believe in God, so that was why that was very strange and confusing to me. Um, and then it took another 5 years until I was able to realize that if the message came from the divine uh, place or divine mind or
Mhm,
divine heart, that's the source that can tell me
mhm.
more about what the message was about. Because I would go to people and ask, well, what do you think this means? What do you think this means? And no one could really tell me anything.
Wow.
But yeah, so once I connected myself back to that source from which I perceived the message was coming from, then everything changed. Literally, like the very next day, I started getting downloads. I started getting revelations. I started getting um, this aha moments one after another, and a lot of synchronicities that I just couldn't explain. So it was a lot of this, what I call miraculous events,
Mm,
that just, makes you think there must be something out there. And
yeah.
some of them were very physical and tangible, kind of like yours with that guy
Yeah.
on the road, that you just know there's something behind it that composing all that things.
Yeah, and I've learned for myself when those messages come in, and I refer to them as my downloads as well. So for me,
Yeah.
it's like my body speaks to me through emotions and through tears, and I
Yes.
feel like that's my soul confirming
Yes.
that it's true. Um, and it's definitely I've learned to trust my intuition more. I've
Yeah.
learned to kind of that gut feeling, and
Yeah.
just and I
Yeah.
grew up in the LDS religion, so the Mormon religion here in Utah.
Right.
They always talk about the Holy Ghost, and that's
Mhm.
their understanding. And
Yeah.
I've come to realize that, for me, I look at it as something way bigger than a religion. It's I think religion's kind of the
Yes.
man-made side of things, and based more on fear than I think it is on hope and love.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
um, but
I
yeah,
totally
that's
agree.
yeah, and that's what's happened for me is like I get these weird downloads, I get this confirmation, my body tingles, and all of a sudden I have a rush of emotions, and it's like my truth is being told to me. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's still very fresh, still kind of new, and it's like it's unfolding moment by moment.
Yeah.
But for me lately, it's
Yeah.
been coming on very fast, so it is kind of
Yeah.
exciting. So
And
uh,
and sounds like you learn to trust that voice. For some people it takes a while, especially if they had another perceptions or value system that was driving them in life, and now all of a sudden they're having this aha moments, and they just take a while for them to kind of trust that voice.
yeah.
Um, so sounds like you're doing a great job.
I like I said, I used to tell people like, when somebody tell me that they're trying, I ask them, try to pick that pen up off the table, right? You either do or you
Hmm.
don't. You can't try.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Yeah.
I learned to start just taking my own advice that I was sharing with other people, and stop
Yeah.
trying to do something and just start doing it. And it's kind of cool. Like I've always had this thought for me that somehow I was meant for something big, but I didn't know what it was. And leaving
Yeah.
my job and posting that first video, it was me wanting to do something else that felt fulfilling. It felt like I was
Yeah.
giving back to people. And I took that
Yeah.
vacation to Maui, and I literally just sat there and asked myself, like, who am I and what am I supposed to do?
Right.
And
Right. Right. And those are the questions that supposed to put you on the path.
Yeah.
of awakening. You know, if some people never ask themselves these questions, they just kind of go with the written script, and they, you know, seem like comfortable.
Hmm.
But you know, some of us, some other souls, are came here for a different reason. So I guess I have to be happy that I came
Yeah.
here for this reason,
Yeah.
and so is you, I'm sure.
And for me, I've felt, and it's been 2.5 years kind of since what I would say was my initial awakening. And I felt like I've maybe had three or four kind of upgrades, if you will, or additions to.
Yeah,
Um, and hearing your story, it sounds like it's been a lot longer than that, but I felt very lonely for a long time. Like I didn't have anybody to talk
yeah,
to. So was that
yeah.
something you experienced as well? Just kind of,
Yes, yes, that's definitely one of the ways that you go through, and there's a purpose in this. You know, again, when you're going through this lonely period, you don't know the purpose. That's why it's so good for someone to explain what's going on. And again, in my
Mhm.
case, no one explained it to me. So I mean, I lost a lot of friends, a lot of connections, because they couldn't resonate with anything I would say anymore.
Mm.
So that was kind of bummer.
Yeah.
But yet, you know, inside of you, you just can't go back. I lost a marriage because of that, because my husband said, I just don't know who you are anymore. That's not the person I married.
Hmm.
But and he just like, can you just go back to the way you were before? And you know, that's not possible.
Yeah.
And
Well,
but then you realize that it's there's a purpose in that, because you're supposed to detach yourself from the previous perception system,
mhm.
and so you have to go through that limbo state, um, and it's hard, but if you keep on focused, there will be support coming your way. The
Yeah.
universe will continue supporting you in whatever way possible, and naturally you want to find someone who's have understanding our experience. But I've
Mhm.
come to learn that sometimes it's okay not to have a person to understand, because no one can understand unless they're going through the same thing.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
if they allow you to go through that and still be there to support you, that is a good relationship.
Yeah. And that's kind of, I'm in a similar path. My wife and I have been married for 20 years, and we've got three children, two grandkids, and life was what she wants is perfect. It was the happy home, the family, the
Yeah,
kids, the
yeah,
grandkids, and all of a sudden things changed for me. And I had a very successful career and spent a lot of time kind of chasing the money and
yeah,
the big dollars. And
yeah,
now all of a sudden I want less. I want nothing in my, to be, not that things are a burden, but it's that, like, I want less to worry
right.
about kind of in the physical, because I feel like there's something more to be done. And it's
Mm,
a weird discussion trying to tell your wife
yeah,
that you don't want the house or you don't
yeah,
want the cars. And it's
yeah,
so
yeah.
it's
It can be very scary for your loved ones, because they don't know what's the future gonna be. They
mm,
so you're gonna have to understand them as well.
yeah.
They in that state, like, well, I mean, you clearly know what's happening with you, and you trust it's for your greater good, but they
Mhm.
don't know it because they can't feel what you feel.
Yeah.
So they are in this kind of survival right now, like, oh, how what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So
Yep. That's the exact conversation happening in my household right now. So I
yeah.
definitely feel that. Um, So I guess my one of my questions as you've gone through this, and having people kind of leave your life and finding others to support you, have you found a support system for yourself, or have you kind of?
Um, yes, I don't say I have a lot of support system. It's just not my personality. I'm a little bit more kind of independent and self-sufficient person,
Mm,
um, which, it's changing with the whole of awakening
mhm.
process. But I do understand how our energy works, which you clearly know as well.
Yeah.
So I try to put my thoughts into positive, envisioning people that I would rather be around, and just, manifesting those people into my life. I have a partner. We've been together for 10 years, and he's very much given me full freedom to explore whatever I want, and being very supportive, although he's not on the same path. And that can be a little bit, bugging, because, you want someone, especially someone who is there with you day in and day out, to do the same activities and, meditate or whatever. But if they don't, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean you have to leave, or you
Wow.
have to, or if they in the, not right for you.
Yeah.
Because as you start maturing in that journey, you start understanding that it's really not about you. I know sounds weird, because that's what it feels like. It's all about you, but it's really not. It's about collective. It's about what you're contributing toward the collective development of mankind,
Wow.
which starts with your personal relationships.
Mm.
So you have to learn how to attain all these qualities of the creative force, the source, God, however you want to call, because we have to embody those qualities. That's our purpose. We
Wow.
have to learn how to embody those qualities. And one of those qualities is oneness and unity. And marriage is the best tool to do that.
Yeah.
It's not really about romance. It's
Yeah.
about learning how to voluntarily commit to something that's bigger than yourself.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, and that's it's like you're speaking like you're watching my life. Because that's exactly what we're going through. Because yeah,
right.
with our relationship kind of didn't fall apart, but just slowly disconnected. And then there was this alone time
Yeah,
period where I just felt things were just me. And we're in that moment right now of learning how to speak
yeah,
to each other again and reconnect
yeah,
and be open enough to talk about what's going on. So it's like I'm
yeah.
relearning how to be a husband. So
Yeah,
it's
and
definitely
it's an exciting thing, and you're doing a great job. You're
yeah.
not closing in, because I know a lot of people who go through the awakening journey, they kind of become very hard on
Mm.
in their heart, which we're supposed to be the opposite. We're supposed to become soft-hearted. We're supposed to be open-hearted, open-minded, forgiving, all this. But if that loneliness can create that sense of, well, the whole world is against me, I'm different, I no longer have the same value system as everybody else, I'm just gonna
Mm.
shut myself away from everybody else.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's what I went through a month ago. I had that feeling. I took time off my job. I told my family and my wife, my kids, I said I need to go by myself. I took a trip alone to Maui and sat there and
Yeah,
meditated for 2 weeks. Is what it felt like, to try to figure out who I was, what I wanted in my life,
yeah,
what I was no longer accepting in my life, and came back. And it just, things have
yeah,
changed to the point where we're slowly figuring it all out. But yeah,
yeah.
it's like drinking from a fire hose is what it feels like right now.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but
and it's okay, because it's part of the journey. You make a step forward, maybe one step back, but you're slowly moving. The goal is to move forward. But it's going to be natural that if one day you wake up and you just kind of lost the momentum, and you're like, bummer, what happened? I don't feel the spirit in me. I don't feel connected to life anymore, and just know it's going to pass. It's like it's a work
yeah.
kind of thing.
Well, and as we're talking, I pay attention to some of the wording, and I would guess I'd say I'm more empathic. I definitely feel things a
Hmm.
lot more than before. And you've used that word feeling a lot. Is that
Yes,
something, do you kind of feel energies and
yes.
emotions and kind of sense the room, if you will,
um
or?
yes, yes. I never even mm, pay attention to my feelings before. As you awaken, you start shifting from the logical side of your brain into
Mm.
the creative side of your brain, where all the emotions and abstract kind of visions stay. And then you learn how to integrate both sides of your brain into one cohesive system.
Mm.
Yes, feelings are definitely something is, requires intelligence. That, we have this emotional intelligence that's kind of buzzword out there right now. um, you have to understand your feelings. You have to, because they are in indicators where you are. You can also use your feelings to get you to where you need to be. So
Okay.
feelings are not, they are byproduct of your past experiences, but they also can be used as a tool to move you in a particular direction rather than them being the master of your life. So, for people who do have this, feeling kind of nature, which, by the way, my partner is also Cancer, so I know
Okay.
what a man
Yeah.
who has a lot of feelings,
Yep.
what it's like to be around those people. Yes, he's very relational and he feels others people more than I do.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, but you gotta learn how to be the master of those feelings.
Mhm.
Feel them, but don't let them take you places you don't want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been my little learning curve right now, is learning how to acknowledge when it's something that I need to address
Yeah,
and allow it, or just to sense it,
yeah,
let it be there and let it pass on. So
yeah, yeah.
it's,
One of the greatest jump I did in my awakening journey is when I start following a particular teacher. And again, I trust that the divine, the universe leads us in a particular direction. That each person has a unique journey, and it's kind of brings us closer to the teachers and the tools that will be good for us.
Mhm.
So you may see that all of a sudden you came across a podcast, or you came across some teachings or a book, and don't be afraid to look into that, because a lot of times it will give you the exact revelation, the exact, information that will kind of unlocks another level
Uh,
of of yourself. So one teacher that I really love is Jody Spencer. Because the reason I love him, because I have a little bit more kind of scientific mind, analytical mind,
mm,
and he's using a lot of science to back up the process of awakening, like what's
okay.
happening in the body, how the mind and the body work together. He has particular meditation techniques. So it helped me tremendously to understand the whole process and be
Okay.
more comfortable in it.
Yeah, and that's I've had a few people that I've kind of come across, or I've just listening to, and there's definitely stuff that resonates and it feels good, and other things that just kind of feel like
Yeah,
it's somebody trying to
yeah,
profit off people. So
yeah,
it's
yeah. Trust yourself. Yeah, trust yourself. There's definitely a big industry in that self-help and awakening and all this, but it's you learn, and then it doesn't mean that something that's more marketable is less important. You may still get a lot of value out of it, but don't lock yourself into that. Keep
yeah,
moving.
yeah, nice. Well, I found for me lately too, because I sense a lot of energy, and sometimes I start feeling it more in my body. My legs
Hmm.
tingle sometimes, or I just kind of sense
Yeah.
some high vibrations coming in. But is there ways that you've learned to kind of ground that energy and channel it to
Mm,
something good? Or
yeah, mostly meditations. Yeah, yeah. I love meditations when I don't focus too much on sensations in my body, because again, they're just sometimes you don't know, it's such a subconscious level of something gets triggered by something, but I know when I'm not in balance. I
Mm,
know if something's off, and I know how to restore that balance back through meditations. um, so that's something really good to learn, because especially if you have that big emotional nature,
mhm,
it's good, because life is about balance. if
mhm.
if you go off balance, whether you feel really really good, you may cling to that, and then now you chasing the feel good kind of thing.
Yeah.
Same, if you have a bad experience, then you're gonna avert from anything that triggers that. So the goal is not to have those cravings and aversions, but to experience them as equally valuable and something you can learn from. Like I learn a lot from endurance, from suffering, from pain. That I see it as a tremendous amount of learning value.
Okay. And then I guess with that, is there lessons that you've taken from, you mentioned pain and suffering and learning from that? What,
Yeah.
and again, only share if you're open to it, but something in your life that's kind of brought that on or that helped you realize how that's been a benefit for you?
Um, something like for example, like the relationship. Every relationship will get to a point, no matter how much you love the person or how much you understand the person, you will have some uh, issues,
Mhm.
just because you have different opinions, just because you like to eat different things or do different things and stuff like that. And that can become an unpleasant situation, and it can trigger something from the past. Maybe you become a victim of some kind of relationship in the past, and you're thinking, oh, it's so bad, and you start thinking about, how can they correct it. But if you learn that the partnership or marriage, as we call it, is not about always being lovey-dovey, but
Mhm.
learning how to um, not just think of yourself, but think of the other person, no
Gotcha.
matter how different they are, that becomes a challenge. And so now you're looking at the difficulty or discomfort you're going through in that relationship as a potential to unfold that quality of oneness and selflessness.
Nice.
So that's just one example. I have probably tons of them, but I just don't want to take a whole lot of pause to think about it right now. But
Yeah.
um, things like this, physical pain as well. Like another quick example. So this time it's not emotional pain; it's a physical pain.
Mhm.
And I was on recently came from Florida. We were there on vacation. Beautiful, just like what you described in Maui, that where you connected to nature,
Mhm.
and whenever you connect to nature, whenever you're near the water and you're touching the ground, the sand, you are just it's like an instant energy connection. um, and I felt very, very connected. I felt just so high the whole week until the last day.
Mhm.
On the last day we were riding bicycles, and we didn't have helmets. It was early morning, so I thought we were just gonna ride on a sidewalk to avoid the traffic. And there was one elderly person. She, I guess, didn't feel like she wanted to share sidewalk with someone who's on a bicycle,
Mhm.
and she yelled and screamed at us and called us names. And naturally, just it's a natural reflex, I responded with the same calling name kind of action.
Mhm.
And so I opened the door. I connected my energy to her energy. I became like her in that moment. And that opened the door for a whole lot of suffering that followed in the next week.
Wow.
I got sick. I got one thing after another, one thing after another. And I asked the divine, I said, okay, what's the purpose in that suffering? Show me what happened. How can I go from this amazing week into a week of being, pain, taking pills just to survive? And I was shown that that's what happened. That's why we have to really understand our energy and abide in that, um, in the truth of who we are, in the energy, positive love, um, compassion, regardless of how other people behave. And So,
Wow. Yeah, and that's the one thing I've noticed too is even having a response to somebody's, lashing out or even a
yeah,
message or a comment online and realizing that my
yeah,
initial instinct is to say one thing and then I'm like, "Whoa, we don't slow down, like back up, rewrite that."
yeah,
And
yeah,
I've definitely been able to catch myself several
yeah,
times and still a learning process. So yeah,
yes,
that's
yes.
great advice.
And
Um,
that's the level of maturity when if you're moving forward and you're doing on that journey and you're moving forward, you're actually now learning everything that you need to learn. You're allowing the process, the divine to teach you. Start becoming a lot more conscious of your own energy, of your own emotions, of your own actions, of your own words, of your own thoughts, and you catch them before they go the wrong way.
mm,
But if they don't, if you still sleep and fall, you have the peace because
mm,
you know this is not about brownie points.
yeah,
This is about we're not here earning tickets to heaven. We're here to learn and to learn how to embody the divine qualities so we can create a better society,
yeah,
because whatever's happening now is
yeah.
not
And
working.
yeah. Well, and that's for me, I've noticed that it seems to be a lot more people are realizing that there's a need for change and there's something else kind
Yeah,
of pushing people to make that change. So
yeah,
um,
yeah,
it's definitely been pretty powerful in my life. So very cool. Well,
yeah.
I would say, is there anything that you would leave us with that might be some good words of wisdom or some
Yeah,
advice to help with?
yeah. I think what you're doing is great. I would love to see a community evolving out of what you're doing. I don't know. We have technology that maybe we can create some virtual regular meetings where people can hop on, hop off. We can be of support to one another in some way. We can, maybe bring some people who can share their stories. It's good to hear that you're not alone in this journey. Maybe some people can share their wealth, maybe meaning their wisdom, like especially if they already been on this journey for a while, they can help someone out. So it's I would love to see a community growing out of it, um, and I'll be glad to help in any way I can.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's really what I've kind of thought is that when everything reached out after that first post and people sharing their experiences, I woke
Yeah,
up that first morning after that initial post and I had over 1,000 messages from people saying, me too, and didn't realize that there was
yeah,
somebody else feeling that. So
yeah,
I definitely see the need for
yeah,
that. And that was kind of the
and
idea for these calls
yeah,
is to let other
yeah,
people
yeah.
know. So,
Yeah, and if you can post them some and create them so that they can be available to others, that would be great. I never posted anything on TikTok. I'm more of a watcher than
mhm.
a content creator. I do have a blog where I write my stories and I write my experience, and I started doing it, almost since it started happening to me, because it just like all of a sudden I have this desire and this gift to start writing. I've never wrote anything until then,
Yeah.
but so that's kind of what I do, and not more of videos. But videos are good because they we see real people,
Mhm.
and we see real emotions, and it's great.
Yeah, well, that was the whole thought of these calls. So I'm starting just on Spotify. It's a free podcast, and so I'm just
Okay,
collecting these calls, and I'm gonna launch them on Spotify. It's gonna go live tomorrow, and I think I'll just
cool.
launch a group of these calls so other people can listen. That there's other people out
Yeah,
there, and so
I'd love to
um,
listen to other people's stories. Yeah, it's a
yeah,
great idea.
so that's where we're at. There'll be about 10 or 12 episodes that will launch tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. And they'll just keep making these phone calls and people calling in and sharing their stories. And so what I would say, or if you're open to it too, if you're writing a blog and would like other people to be able to find it, if you want to share
Hmm.
that blog website with us, and that way other people could find you too as we
Yeah,
move this forward. So
yeah, yeah, definitely. Do you want me to say the name or send
yeah,
you a link to it?
Do both if you will. Let's, because this will be something that people will be listening to, and then we
Okay.
can, in the comments, I'll put the link to it as we have it in the
Yeah.
description. So
Yeah. I don't have a specific link, but it's on, maybe it's, it's in a search, if maybe someone can search it. It's on Google's Blogger. That's the program that I'm using, and it's a free. That's what I'm using. We
mhm.
like free stuff, right?
Yeah.
um, and it's called Be His Child. Um, I don't know why I called it this way, but that's kind of felt natural. Um, and that's what it's called. So it's and I will send you a link, and you welcome to share it
Yeah,
if
yeah, definitely do that. And like I said, well, I'm going to write a little description for the episode content of what this one, what we talked about, and I'll make sure that link is in the blog so people will be able to find you and read your story. And I think that's what this is about. Just a lot of us sharing
yeah,
stories and experiences and helping each other realize that we're all in
yeah,
this together. So
yeah.
that
And
was
the
great.
great thing about awakening process, it happens to anyone. It's not like you have to belong to a specific group of people, a specific, practice, religious practice or spiritual practice, or you have to live in specific part of a country or whatever. It's like when it happens, it happened, and no
Mhm,
matter who you are, it becomes something that's very unique and amazing, very meaningful.
mhm.
I've never really been satisfied with life
Wow.
until I started that journey. You just discover something different,
Mhm,
in my behavior when I was actually started that journey. I felt such an amazing love of a divine in my heart that I've never fathomed before, and that made me wanted to love everybody else,
mhm,
which was very strange. I've never experienced those kind of feelings, um, and my mom, who kind of watched me through this process, and she, obviously mothers know their child. She said it was like watching black turning white. That's how dramatic the change was in my
yeah.
behavior.
Wow.
um, and for me, I can also compare the life before the awakening and the life after the awakening. It's like turning black and white TV into color.
Hmm.
When I was young, we actually got a new a color TV. I'm not sure how old you are, but I'm in my early 50s, so I still remember that day when we had
Hmm.
a color TV.
Wow. Yeah, I'm 45, so just a few years behind you, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
very cool. Well, yeah, I can't thank you enough for your advice, your help, your time, and
thank
I
you.
truly look forward to
Yeah.
continuing this journey and a friendship with you if that's possible. So
Yes,
very
absolutely. And
cool.
I thank you for being you, for being real, for being vulnerable, for being open, because it's scary, especially when you put yourself out there, and many people who know you may see that video, and you're like, oh, what they gonna think? I'm not. Yeah. So, and I think a lot of people hesitant about doing that, but for that very reason.
Mhm.
But you have a lot of courage, and
Yeah.
it's contagious. So,
Well, it's
thank
been
you.
fun, and yeah, what I think what happened for me, and I realized that there might be people in my life or coworkers that I was friendly with that are no longer there, but it was like I'd maybe lost 10 people to gain thousands. And so
Wow, that's
it
great.
was
Amazing.
one of those, yeah, it was a hard realization. And that was my day 5 video, was me realizing how many
Yeah,
people in my life were not who I thought they were. And
yeah,
but
yeah,
then those
yeah,
that have stepped in and been a part of this journey so far is way outweighed what I feel like I lost. So
yeah,
very full.
yeah.
But well, I'm going to wrap it up so we don't go
Yes,
over our time. But thank you so much, and I appreciate you, and I wish you the best ever. And let's stay in touch.
yes, thank you. You too.
Okay. Well, I hope
Have
you
a
have a
good
great
one.
day. Thanks, and bye.
You too. Bye bye.